Welcome, everybody. 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock in California, and some other time in Paris, France. Thank you for joining. This is Two Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin, your guide to everything that happened today, some things that might happen tomorrow, and an opportunity for you to be part of the experience. If you'd like to be involved here, if you're on the Two Way platform, please raise your hand to get in on the conversation. If you've never asked a question before, I recommend tonight because our three guests are about the nicest people I know. Oh, I say that to all the guests, but they are very nice and very informed. So if you'd like to be in the conversation, raise your hand. If you're watching on YouTube or on X, no hand raising, no smack in the chat, all peace, love, and understanding, all presumption of grace to all, and be ready to be highly informed. Tonight, we're going to spend a lot of our night talking about Bobby Kennedy, long expected, long awaited appearance, ill-timed or well-timed, depending on if you're a journalist or Bobby Kennedy's wife. Because so many questions swirling about his stewardship of HHS. And he appeared before the Senate Finance Committee today in what a Capitol Hill correspondent who didn't have a lot of creativity or access to a thesaurus would call a contentious hearing. And it was contentious not just with the Democrats, when nilly was it contentious, and we'll show you some of that, but it was also by the standards of Trump-era Republicanism, pretty contentious with three members of the committee who are Republicans. Maybe not a surprise, Bill Cassidy, because the senator from Louisiana was lied to by Bobby Kennedy. I could put a finer point on it, sugarcoat it, but many promises Secretary Kennedy made to be confirmed to Senator Cassidy, who's chair not of this committee, not of finance, but of the health committee. He's not lived up to. So even though Senator Cassidy's relatively mild-mannered, not a surprise there. Conflict with Senator Tillis of North Carolina, again, not a surprise, because Senator Tillis, who's not running for re-election, has been free now to criticize the Trump administration a fair amount. Perhaps the biggest surprise of the day in the hearing is Senator Barrasso, member of the House Senate Republican leadership, who usually does not rock boats or throw flames when it comes to the Trump administration, had some jousting, even-tempered jousting, but jousting nonetheless. And we'll show you that. And our guests will hopefully explain to us what it means. Is there any significance? I got several texts from members of the community today, emails and texts saying, yeah, a lot of theater, a lot of back and forth, but is there any implications of it? Is Secretary Kennedy going to resign? Is he going to have to change his policies? Is the White House going to be upset? And I don't know the answer to that. And I'm hoping our guests do. I'm looking forward to hearing what they say about it. So we'll watch a lot of clips of that. There's some other news today besides the hearing, although, again, we're going to spend a lot of time on the hearing. Wall Street Journal reporting a criminal probe of Fed Governor Lisa Cook is underway. We knew there was a referral made by Mr. Pulte, but now the Journal's reporting there's a criminal investigation going on. FBI, apparently, according to the Washington Post, sees some boxes with files from John Bolton's home. I think they're from his home, maybe his office, labeled Trump labeled Trump on the boxes. I don't know if the files were labeled Trump or the boxes. Governor Pritzker had some things to say about the National Guard today. This story that we should have been covering more than we have about the president apparently thinking he can, without any legal authority, just kill suspected drug dealers at sea. We'll talk a little bit about that probably. And Melania Trump had some things to say about AI, and that's interesting. We don't get to hear the First Lady talk very much about much of anything. So we'll listen to that a little bit. Let's see. Just getting a text from someone who normally sends me news. Anyway, get to that. Our guests tonight, in case you don't know, are Mark Bednar, Republican strategist with great Capitol Hill experience, more of a House guy than a Senate guy, at least as far as I know, but he'll be here. Another guest who's here quite a bit, Steve, I always have to struggle over his name. I call him Steve. Steve Olakara. How's that? He'll be here. He's a Democratic strategist. And Rachel Beda Politico, Capitol Hill bureau chief and one of the finest Washington reporters and writers working today. All three of them will be here, and we'll run through everything Kennedy. And again, that'll be a big part of the show. And again, if you want to get in on the conversation on that or pretty much anything you'd like to talk about, and you're here on the Two Way platform, please raise your hand. Now, a brief word from our sponsor, Cozy Earth. I get so much feedback for these Cozy Earth ad reads that I do because people recognize that I mean it. This is not some fakery. I love the pants. I love the sheets. Love the shirts, and I recommend them to you. Cozy Earth products made with viscose from bamboo. I wore them all summer, and they were fantastic. And many of you, more men than women, but that'll change soon enough as you listen to me, have bought the pants and love them too. Bamboo joggers, the everywhere pants, they're fantastic. And then the sheets as well. And I'm looking forward to using them and wearing them and sleeping on them all fall because I have no reason to believe they'll be any less comfortable. 100-night sleep guarantee on the sheets rather, on the bedding. So buy that now, and 10-year warranty as well. But you can keep them for 100 nights and then return them if you don't like them. You'll like them. Best of all, maybe, not only are they comfortable, not only do they look good, but they're more affordable than ever if you're a viewer of this program, because you can use our discount code two-way for 40% off everything. Best-selling sheets, pajamas, and more. Upgrade your wardrobe, your sheets, etc. Right now, built for real life, made to keep up with yours. Cozy Earth, I recommend. All right, let's bring in our guests because I'm going to need their help in decoding this Kennedy thing because, man, it's confusing. Mark Bednar, Republican strategist, joins right here, right now. Mark, do you have Senate experience, or are you pure the House of the people? Have you unmute?
Think we're good. Hey, Mark, I do have Senate experience in a couple of ways. One, I worked for Senator Perdue, now ambassador to China, when he was first elected in that Republican wave of 2014. But I was also Sherpa for Lee Zeldin through his confirmation process through the EPA earlier this year.
Dude, you're like Ken Duberstein. You know all about the Senate.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
I'm still a House snob. So
Yeah, you're more of a House guy because the House of Lords is filled with a bunch of people who all think they should be president. I interviewed Senator Schmidt of Missouri today, and I said every senator I've ever interviewed, with one exception, I asked them the same question at some point. I say, when you look in the mirror, do you see a future president? Do you know the only senator I never asked that of? Barbara Mikulski of Maryland. because I knew she didn't see a senator when president. Anyway, he demurred, but my point is, it's the House of Lords. They all think they can be president. The House guys and gals, they're a little more modest. Steve, welcome back. Steve hails from our finest state, Wisconsin. Steve, do you know I'm going to my first Packers game?
You are. What's taking you there? And Mark here is a fellow Wisconsinite too.
I know it's all Badger all the time. I got a very nice offer. I've been to Lambeau Field for a Sarah Palin event, or as John Kerry called it, Lambert Field. But I've never been to a game, and I'm super excited. I'm going to the Bengals game on Columbus Day weekend, and I will be having a brat and a brew. Thank you for asking.
That's
Steve,
great. That's
thank
great
you for
to
coming
hear.
back. Steve, tell
Thank
people you ran for public office in Wisconsin, and tell people what you do now who don't know.
Yes. I ran for Senate in the Democratic primary in Wisconsin, and most of my career has been focused on political reform. I consider myself an independent-minded populist, and currently I'm a senior fellow at the USC Schwarzenegger Institute, where I focus on political transformation, and I also lead the media nonprofit Bridge Entertainment Labs.
Amazing. And you guys know each other, right?
We do.
Yep.
Yeah. Because of Wisconsin or what?
Steve and my wife were in student government together at the University of Wisconsin. Like,
Hilarious.
can't get nerdier than that, but yeah.
What's that other campus called? Dana Point? What's that other campus? Stevens Point. But you don't mean Stevens Point. You mean Madison. You mean the big campus.
Yeah.
The
Stevens
big
Point's
campus
up here.
But you guys have never been on the show together, right?
Correct.
All right, this is amazing and historic. I think there was a recent episode when one of you was on and the other guest wasn't from Wisconsin, but for some reason I thought they were. So I'm glad to have two Badgers, authentic on Wisconsin Badgers. Maybe that's why Katie Reeves is here tonight, because
we have a Midwestern cohort all together. That's why you said everyone was so nice, because between Ohio and Wisconsin, we bring the nice.
Yeah.
Ohio.
The Ohio State. Rachel Bade, again, I said Rachel Bade is on the new episode of Next Up, which we'll talk about. But she's here also for this program. Rachel, welcome in. Thank you for joining. I'll say about Rachel here what I said on Next Up. There are very few reporters where I read every story they write, no matter what it's about. I read every story. I read every story Rachel writes because they're well reported and interesting and well written. And crazily, unlike most of her colleagues, I'm not just at Politico, in the print Dodge, Rachel actually takes pride in her craft of writing. Her stories are actually interestingly written. Not that common these days. Very well, much appreciated. Breaking news from the New York Times on the Eric Adams beat. Eric Adams secretly met with Steve Witkoff in Florida earlier this week. as he weighs dropping his reelection campaign and potentially taking a job in the Trump administration. So let's start with you, Rachel, and we'll get to Secretary Kennedy. Does the fact that he met with Witkoff mean anything, do you think, to the question of whether he's actually going to take a job and quit the mayor's race?
I mean, it sure seems like it does. I mean, publicly, he's downplaying this, obviously, saying he's interested in running in New York only. But if you took the meeting, obviously he's interested. I gotta say though, Mark, I still don't understand what the Trump White House is doing here. I mean, it would be to their advantage for Mamdani to win. I mean, they could take his victory and what he does in New York and just harangue the Democratic Party with it in the midterms. I mean, self-described socialist tearing up New York, point to him and say, look, this is what the Democratic Party will do if they flip the House. This is what they're going to do if they take power. So, it's still beyond me why they're trying to get Eric Adams out.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you the countervailing thing. This is not Spidey sense, but reporting. The president's sons, the president's friend, Steve Witkoff, most of Donald Trump's closest friends feel they would lose billions of dollars if there's a socialist mayor. And Donald Trump is another time I'll say to people who don't understand him, he's not only motivated by altruism, but he loves New York. And he and his friends believe this guy would ruin New York. So that's the countervailing thing. They just don't want New York to be ruined. And again, this is less altruistic. They don't want to lose billions of dollars. And they really believe they'll lose billions of dollars. I talked to someone today who's a billionaire. A crazy thing. I was talking to my son about this the other day. There's only like 1,000 billionaires in the United States. I know a ridiculously high percentage of them just because of my job. And I talked to one of the billionaires I know today, and he said 1,135. Thank you very much. That's around 1,000. He said he would sell everything in New York, and he's not hyperbolic. He said he'd sell everything if this guy wins. He said on election day, if he wins, or if it's clear he's going to win, he'll sell everything. He'll sell all his holdings, all his businesses, everything. He's like, so I think that's why. Steve, real quick, because I want to get to Kennedy. Your thoughts on the mayor's race? I know you play 3D chess when it comes to this stuff. If Adams gets out, do you make Cuomo the favorite or not?
I mean, some polling shows that if not just Adams, but some of the other candidates drop out, then Cuomo might be slightly ahead. I still think that Mamdani is the candidate to beat in the race. Those billionaires you're talking about are very custom, and I know a few of them, maybe not as much as many as Mark does, but those billionaires are so accustomed to having direct access to the mayor's office, and that wouldn't be the case in the same way with Mamdani. So that's why all of these things are happening. And my prediction is that Adams will drop out.
Yeah. Mark, I know you're not an expert on Democratic politics or Eric Adams, but you do know a lot of billionaires just like me. Do you think that the White House can engineer this and Cuomo can win or not?
Well, what's fascinating, this is a win-win for President Trump either way, because either he wins the race and he gets his preferred candidate, or there's the potential financial pitfall for a lot of people. But to Rachel's very astute point, Mamdani can become a political battering ram for the Trump administration, and anything that we're seeing for crime, corruption, whatever, throughout DC or in other cities, this can be the big shiny new object that the administration can point to both through the midterms and beyond. So it's a win-win either way.
Go ahead, Rachel.
I will say I've talked to Democrats in the House who are already trying to sort of frame their thinking about how they're going to respond to this when he becomes governor. I mean, how do they separate themselves, make sure that they're not tied to him in any way, because they know Republicans are going to do this and they know it's going to be effective.
Yeah, and of course, neither Jeffries nor Schumer would like Mamdani to be mayor. They can't say it publicly, but I can tell you neither of them would like him to win, and neither of them loves Andrew Cuomo, but they know he's the only alternative. All right, Kennedy, incredible day, and if you've watched cable news all day, you've seen this, and look at any publication, you'll see this as a lead story. Number one, New York Times headline, Kennedy rejects criticism, data, and decorum in fiery hearing. He rejects criticism, data, and decorum. Interesting headline. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. faced a withering barrage of questioning, responding at times with clear disdain for the senator's public health data and the CDC. I read the headlines now because, as you know, gentlemen and lady, this program is now available as a podcast. And while the visuals are stunning, it's like a series of Monet paintings. If you're listening on a podcast, you're going to miss the visuals, including this headline. All right, here's the Politico headline. And I think Rachel's headline writing colleagues at Politico got this right. Number 2, please, because Republican or Kennedy fight, even though he is a Democrat historically, Kennedy fighting with Democratic members of the committee, dog bites man. But Politico headline, GOP discontent with RFK is growing. Bill Cassidy was joined by John Barrasso and Tom Tillis in confronting the health secretary about his leadership at a hearing. That, ladies and gentlemen, one of my favorite phrases in all of journalism, man bites dog. Republicans going after a Trump cabinet secretary. So here is Secretary Kennedy, Samuel play 3 and 4 back to back, making his pro Maha statements about his stewardship and defending his record. 3 and 4, please.
The sickest country in the world. That's why we have to fire people at CDC. They did not do their job. This was their job to keep us healthy.
Thank you,
and I need to fire some of those people to make sure this doesn't happen again. We were lied to about everything. We were lied to about natural immunity. We were lied to about, we were told again and again the vaccines would prevent transmission, they'd prevent infection. It wasn't true. They knew it from the start it wasn't true because that's what the animal studies and the clinical trials showed. We were told that there was science behind cloth masks. The CDC allowed the teachers union to write the order closing our schools, which hurt working people all over the country, and then pretend it was science-based.
Just as an aside, before we get to more of this, the Secretary of Defense has just tweeted out, this is the tweet, Secretary of War, or Department of War, sorry. Fox News is reporting that what has been out there in the ether for a while, and the president's talked about publicly, that they're going to advocate changing the name, which I don't believe they can do without Congress, but we'll see. They are going to try to change the name as another step down that path. All right, more on Secretary Kennedy. Here he is in colloquy. We'll show you with some of the Democrats. Here he is with Michael Bennet, who's running for governor in Colorado. Number 5, please.
I think it's critical for you to share the evidence that this panel will rely on. Will you give the American people 6 months or 6 weeks in advance the record that they're going to rely on to make these decisions? Will you make it transparent for the American people?
All the evidence is transparent.
Will you make it in advance transparent for the American people so they can comment on it?
All the evidence is transparent for the first time in history, and you were never there complaining when the pharmaceutical companies were picking those people and then running their products through with no safety testing.
You can characterize it any way you want. I quoted them today. What I said was accurate. What you said were lies. You described moving the Titanic. Senator,
are you saying that the mRNA vaccine has never been associated with myocarditis or pericarditis in teenagers?
I am simply.
Is that what you're trying to tell us?
I am simply trying to say that the people that you have put on that panel, after firing the entire.
You're evading the question.
No, I'm asking the questions here,
You're
Mr.
evading
Kennedy.
that question.
I'm asking the questions,
I
Mr.
asked
Kennedy.
You a question.
I'm asking the questions for Mr. Kennedy on behalf of parents and schools and teachers all over the United States of America who deserve so much better than your leadership. That's what this conversation is about, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, they deserve the truth, and that's what we're going to give them for the first time in the history of that agency.
All right, if you're a Trump cabinet member and you're not done fighting with Democrats, when you're done with Michael Bennet, of course, you'd switch to the gentle lady who persists from Massachusetts, number 7, please.
I never promised that I was going to recommend products for which there is no indication.
When you said...
And I know you've taken $855,000 from pharmaceutical companies, Senator.
All right. Rachel.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously, like you said at the top, we knew Democrats were going to come in hot on this. I mean, I think of the 12 Democrats on the panel, like 11 of them had already said they wanted him to resign before this hearing even began. Um, I actually, I have a question on this for Stephen. I guess I'm wondering, should Democrats make this more of a midterm issue? I mean, we'll talk about how Republicans acted in this hearing and how surprising it was and why it matters in a second. But first, just to talk about the Democrats here, I mean, Barrasso mentioned polling. He cited polling in this hearing that said 89% of voters agree that vaccine recommendations should be made by experts. I'm just wondering, should Democrats be trying to make this more of a midterm issue? I think about, the things that get me revved up most. I'm the mother of a 3-year-old toddler, and anything that I would consider a threat to her safety would make me crazy. And so, we think about the midterms, we think about the mega bill, the economy, pocketbook issues. But this is an issue that is obviously very personal for a lot of people. And Stephen, I'm curious, do you think that Dems should try to be doing that in the midterms?
Yes, they should. I've been fixated on the same exact piece that you have because the reason why RFK Jr. was an interesting asset to the MAGA coalition is he really did attract unconventional independent voters or populist voters from the left, right, and center. That was a real addition to the Trump coalition. Those same independents may start, and we're starting to see some evidence of that, start splintering off from RFK Jr.'s coalition on this very issue that you're speaking to, which is funding research for vaccines and other forms of medical research that, by the way, another Wisconsin plug, some of that research goes to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And that's something that cuts across demographic groups, as in the polling that you reference is absolutely right. It's really a post-partisan issue. Americans of all stripes want to see that kind of vaccine funding. And just remember, you can be a vaccine skeptic and pro funding of mRNA research. And I think this is going to be really interesting to watch and see if RFK Jr. loses some of that key independent support that he had.
I also think, in terms of vaccine skeptics, there's sort of a level of skepticism for different people. I mean, a lot of people, yes, skeptical about the COVID vaccine, but when it comes to, measles, a lot of those people feel very differently. And he's sort of, going after these, on a whole scale basis. So I do want to switch gears slightly here. Can we bring up element number E9? Because I really think the Republican reaction in this hearing is really telling and actually sort of rare for what we're seeing in terms of Republicans on the Hill and their relationship with President Trump. Can we see E9?
By protecting his troops from smallpox, Washington preserved the Continental Army, which allowed our nation to continue to fight for our independence. And like President Trump, I believe President Washington acted decisively to protect Americans' lives at a time of great national peril. So over the last 50 years, vaccines are estimated to have saved 154 million lives worldwide. I support vaccines. I'm a doctor. Vaccines work. Secretary Kennedy, in your confirmation hearings, you promised to uphold the highest standards for vaccines. Since then, I've grown deeply concerned. The public has seen measles outbreaks, leadership at the National Institute of Health questioning the use of mRNA vaccines, the recently confirmed director of Centers for Disease Control and Prevention fired. Americans don't know who to rely on. Recent polls said 89% of voters, 81% of Trump voters agree vaccine recommendations should come from trained physicians, scientists, public health experts. So, they believe, Senator Marshall, Senator Cassidy, they believe me when it comes to vaccines. If we're going to make America healthy again, we can't allow public health to be undermined. So could you
Just to underscore who that was, John Barrasso, the #2 Senate Republican, the whip. This is somebody who is by no means a never Trumper or a Trump critic. This is one of Trump's top allies on Capitol Hill. I've covered him for a long time. I can't remember a single time when I have heard him be critical of President Trump or the administration in a way like he was just there. And I think that underscores just how frustrated Republicans are with RFK. Mark, you worked, I should say, Mark Bednar specifically. By the way, we worked together on the Hill quite often. When I was covering Kevin McCarthy, for those who are watching, I was bugging Mark all the time, so I know him pretty well. But you can speak to this or just sort of tell the audience more about how significant it is to see someone in leadership criticizing the Trump administration. It's just not done. And I mean, McCarthy, your former boss, he was sort of known for telling members to never do something like that. If you have an issue, you take it to the president privately. React to that. What does it say to you? And just tell people how surprising it is.
Well, it's interesting within the context of hearings because you want to get little clues from, especially from the same party. Are they offering off ramps? Are they offering you an opportunity to answer a question in a different way? And so, like the continuation of that clip, Senator Barrasso asked for transparency, and then Secretary Kennedy says, "Yeah, like of course we want transparency. That's why we're shaking things up." Um, and to me, like this moment in time with kind of the Maha movement is very similar to what we saw in April regarding tariffs. Is that ultimately the administration, they know where they want to go, and they know their like their policy objectives, their political objectives, and the audiences that they ultimately want to reach. But there are a lot of different beacons going off about like what is the right answer and like who should Congress listen to, who's our go-to. And even you could hear part of the frustration potentially with Senator Barrasso right there was not so much like in a specific policy, I disagree with you on this. It's I have concerns and where do I look? And so it's going to be really important going forward for any major policy point, whether it was tariffs in April, which has kind of smoothed over within House and Senate Republican conferences, and now within Maha within their decisions, just stay connected to the Hill, stay connected to your conference to make sure that they know what True North is. And like if it's pretty clear, like within that context, Senator Barrasso was asking for that.
Yeah. Less surprising criticism from Senator Cassidy, also a doctor like Barrasso, and someone who's voted to convict Donald Trump in his impeachment hearing. So he's not afraid to criticize Donald Trump and those associated with him. Here he is. This is number 8, Sam, criticizing RFKJ on vaccines. Number 8, please.
He's an incredible accomplishment. Mr. Secretary, do you agree with me that the president deserves a Nobel Prize for Operation Warp Speed?
Yeah, absolutely, Senator. That was phenomenal.
Let me ask you, but you just told Senator Bennett that the COVID vaccine killed more people than COVID.
Wait,
that was a statement.
I did not say that.
Okay, then let me ask, because you also were
Senator, I just want to make clear, I did not say that.
We'll check the record. That's a question of fact. You also said that you were also, as lead attorney for the Children's Health Defense, you engaged in multiple lawsuits attempting to restrict access to the COVID vaccine. Again, it surprises me that you think so highly of Operation Warp Speed when, as an attorney, you attempted to restrict access. Now,
Okay. One more thing on this, and then I want to get everybody's sort of closing thoughts on whether this is going to have an impact. Is this hearing just for show and the Republicans and the Democrats said their piece, or will this have any impact on policy or personnel? But here's the vice president who loves to tweet profanity, number 11. Not always, but profanity where he feels it's got a place. Vice President Vance tweeting about the hearing. When I see all these senators trying to lecture and gotcha Bobby Kennedy today, all I can think is you all support off-label, untested, and irreversible hormonal therapies for children, mutilating our kids and enriching big pharma. You're full of S, and everyone knows it. But he wrote out S. My son just walked in, so I'm not going to read it. So again, one thing that's the case, and this is not some original reporting, but it is true. Incredible loyalty for Bobby Kennedy in this administration. They just love him. They will go to the mattresses for someone from the most fabled modern Democratic family, unless you count the Waxmans. So closing question, Mark, then Steve, then Rachel. Will this hearing have any impact? If so, what? Or is it just for show and for laying down markers? Mark.
No, I think that this raised the temperature really quickly, and then it dropped. When I watched the Michael Bennett exchange, I signed up for his emails, and at 3:21 p.m. I got wouldn't you know it, a fundraising appeal to sign a petition about why Robert F. Kennedy should resign. So I think this was a show up for partisan sake, and then they'll go.
Okay.
Will
But
go out in their
Mark,
way.
before we go to Steve and then Rachel, what about the Republicans? I take your point on the Democrats, but what about Barrasso and Cassidy? Did they have some follow-up agenda, or they just wanted to say their piece today?
I think they want to say their piece. Like as I told Rachel, like I think Barrasso was just basically signaling, let's figure out a way where this can be clearly communicated. Cassidy's obviously kind of goes to the beat of his own drum, but he's running for re-election. He just hosted Lori Chavez Dreamer down in Louisiana, labor secretary. So clearly he has interest in at least maintaining decent ties with the administration. So I don't see him rocking the boat in too egregious of a way.
Stephen.
Well, first, I think we all would have loved to have seen RFK Jr. actually give an answer to that question we saw about the Nobel Prize, because RFK Jr. was the leading skeptic of the COVID vaccines, and then he's saying Donald Trump should have a Nobel Prize for Operation Warp Speed. I think there are two things revealed with this. First, it's really hard to have a real conversation in these hearings. The reason why Cassidy kept pushing along is because he had a very limited amount of time. The senators are often not really asking questions with the intent on getting real answers. And the second point is building on what Mark said, which is so much of this is for fundraising. It's part of what I call the division industrial complex, where you see some politician unnaturally raise their voice during these hearings, try to get a social media clip, and then their fundraising team immediately sends out solicitations on email or a text message. They're legally able to do that, but all of us as American people, as voters, people who are consuming this, should be aware of that.
Rachel.
Yeah, look, I think the administration sent a very clear signal to not just Democrats, but Republicans on the Hill when JD Vance sent that tweet. And it wasn't just JD Vance. It was Caroline Leavitt at some point. She tweeted that Kennedy was right on target, and that's why people were attacking him. If that doesn't tell you that they're going to be with him and that they're basically suggesting Republicans need to back off, I don't know what does. And then I agree with, Mark's point in terms of Cassidy. Obviously, he has authority on this issue because of his background as a doctor, and a lot of people look to him as the one who could potentially, push the envelope to actually enact change. But he's up for re-election, and he's not going to get Donald Trump's endorsement down there in a primary because he voted to impeach him after the January 6th, Capitol riot. But there are a lot of Republicans right now who are trying to get Donald Trump not to endorse someone who's challenging him or someone who could challenge him. And knowing that that is in the background and that his, political future rides on that, it just seems difficult to imagine that he's going to really press things.
Yeah. All right. Two more quick stories, comments from our guests, and then want you all to be involved in the conversation. So please raise your hand if you want to get in here. This story's been around for a couple of days, and I blame myself for not really thinking through the implications of it. Donald Trump ordering summarily killing alleged drug smugglers on a ship connected to a Venezuelan gang. Here is the New York Times, their new news analysis piece, which puts it in good, sharp relief. Number 16, please. It's just an interesting question. Again, this is a president who says he hates death, he hates killing, he hates war. But New York Times headline, Trump claims the power to summarily kill suspected drug smugglers. The move to treat criminals as if they were wartime combatants escalated an administration pattern of using military force for law enforcement tasks at home and abroad. Rachel.
Yeah, I mean, you say he hates death, he hates killing, and I've heard that from his allies as well. But you know what he does love is a show of force and a show of strength. And so I think this was as much about optics as it was actually taking out, these drugs. So he's trying to show that he's standing up to cartels, and even if that means killing them. I mean, legally, I don't know what's next. I mean, maybe Mark, you've read more about this, but like who can even challenge this in court because those people are dead? Can you challenge it in court? I mean, what happens now? I don't know. But I mean, Donald Trump, he likes to show some muscle.
Yeah, Mark. Again, if people are bothered by this, they don't think it's an abuse of power. Is there any U.S. or international way to stop the president from doing this if he wants to keep doing it, or he's got a free hand to do it?
Well, I think it was on Inauguration Day itself where he designated drug cartels as FTOs, foreign terrorist organizations.
Yeah.
But killing drug cartel members from a socialist country, I think that's like right up the alley of a Trump presidency, and like I don't see how that like discontinues
Well,
or
if the ship had a DEI policy, that would be more
right, yeah,
the
right,
missing element.
exactly.
But it's also just like the crime issue, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he's leaning in, doing things people say he doesn't have the power to do with the National Guard.
And,
And it's all, an attempt to put Democrats up against the wall and dare them to say, oh, you shouldn't have killed those cartels, or oh, crime is not an issue.
Yeah, Stephen, you're
yeah.
you're a big civil liberties guy, and you're a big rule of law guy. If you were a senator from Wisconsin and a reporter shoved a microphone in your face and said, "How do you feel about the president without any authority from Congress or declaration of war or finding of criminality in a court of law, killing people with the military?" Would you say, how would you feel about that?
Well, I'd start with acknowledging what Rachel and Mark have both mentioned, which is this is Trump pushing the strength button, which he's very good at doing politically, and enhancing his political brand in that way, while also raising the civil liberties questions and the legality of all this. And by the way, had I been in the Senate for a long time, even going back to the Obama administration, I would have questioned what some of the things that the Obama administration would have done related to drones, and just to demonstrate that there is a consistent issue we've seen across Democratic and Republican presidents using force abroad in this kind of way.
But this is probably the other than DC, which is very recent, but another recent example of how when the president will do something and basically Democrats have to fight back with a thesaurus, right? Like they had to argue that Iran's nuclear capabilities were not obliterated; they were just decimated or heavily damaged, or crime in DC is not that bad. And so now, if they want to get into a engagement about, well, drug dealers from Venezuela, like we probably shouldn't mess with them in that sort of way. Like that is playing on President Trump's turf. That's on his. It's a battleground of his choosing, and that is a political win for him.
Okay, and one more story, and then again, your questions. In about an hour, the president's hosting a dinner for a lot of executives, including a lot of tech and AI executives. Today, the First Lady spoke to a group talking about the power and importance of AI and the responsibility to manage its growth in a way that protects what needs to be protected. Here's the First Lady, number 18, please.
Wonderful to be here today alongside private sectors, leaders like Mr. Pichai, Mr. Karishma, Mr. Wilson, and the many more visionaries from across industry. We are living in a moment of wonder, and it is our responsibility to prepare children in America. Cars now steer themselves through our cities. Robots hold steady hands in the operating room, and drones are redefining the future of war. Innovations of first-generation humanoids, factory automation, and autonomous vehicles have surged from private sector investment. Every one of these advancements is powered by AI.
Stephen, obviously, AI, the future, it's coming, it's here. Is this one area in Washington where we could actually see lawmakers work together on bipartisan basis to, pass laws, write regulations, or do you think this is just going to devolve into some sort of partisan mudsling? How do you see it playing out?
Well, I helped organize one of the first congressional hearings on AI a number of years ago with the Congressional Future Caucus. These were young members of Congress working in a bipartisan way. So at that time, it was very bipartisan. It was early enough that many of the more senior leaders in Congress were, shall we say, not taking that issue seriously enough at the time. Now enough time has passed. AI is really the issue. And obviously, I hope it remains really a nonpartisan issue. I think it mostly has on Capitol Hill, but it can change very quickly. The nature of the polarization vortex is any issue that gets pushed through it, immediately people will take their side. So the main thing is we need people to be much more proactive on this than they have been.
And you said at the top of the show that you would call yourself a populist too. I actually could see in terms of the fighting over the future in AI, this not breaking along party lines, where you have people in both parties who are worried about, American workers, and then some people who are saying, oh, okay, we can adjust, and those workers will find new jobs. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. I think that will likely be the divide in this issue. Might not be a traditional left versus right, but more of
Right.
a populist versus corporate style issue.
Mark, we know that the AI industry, tech in general, has shifted its political giving more to Republicans than they had previously. Do you see, from a purely political point of view, either party having an advantage as the party of AI, either the party leading us into a brave new future of efficiency and magical usages, or the party to protect us from the dangers?
Well, right now it seems like Republicans kind of have the advantage. Of course, like having like all levers of power helps, but uh being kind of with the president and like with the Genius Act and other legislation that has worked its way through Congress has become law just within this last year. Republicans embracing like it's us versus China in the battle for the 21st century, and whoever gets AI, whoever gets quantum is going to win basically world predominance for the ensuing centuries. So the fact that Republicans are embracing this, even with the potential pitfalls that Steve talked about, that's really helpful for the industry, for Republicans, and basically the country going forward.
Yeah. All right, a word from our other sponsor of tonight's program, and then your question. So again, if you don't have your hand up and you want to be in the conversation, please raise your hand. We all know how important sleep is, getting a good night's rest. For some people, it's easy. Other people sometimes have trouble sleeping, and you know what happens if you can't sleep. Next day, you're dragging, you're exhausted, and everything feels a lot harder. So for a lot of people, the best solution is CB Distillery. Their products made from CBD, all natural, clean ingredients, premium CBD, no fillers. Imagine being able to rest, enjoy a good night's sleep. Also, for a lot of people, aches and pains are dealt with really effectively by their products. Over 2 million people use the products of CB Distillery. If you want to give it a try, you can, and you can do it with a discount. How much of a discount? I hear you ask. 25% off with the code two-way, promo code two-way. Go to cbdistillery.com. Use the promo code two-way for 25% off. Give it a try. Not all products are available in all areas, so your individual state may have some say in that, but I recommend you give it a try if you're having trouble sleeping or aches and pains or anything else where this has been proven effective for so many. All right, let's go to your questions now. Again, if you want in on the conversation, raise your hand for our guest. We'll start with Chris Taylor. Mr. Taylor, nice to see you. Welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Rachel, Mark, and Stephen.
Hey, so I'm in northern Idaho, but I appreciate today's lineup, given that I was born in Baraboo, Wisconsin.
All right.
Excellent.
Is that a real place? Where is that a real place? Where is that?
Not only is it a real place, it's a famous place.
Really? What's it famous for?
The circus.
Ooh.
Circus Museum.
Like a Ringling Brothers Museum?
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Anyway,
didn't know that. Go ahead.
So I was born there. Probably the first 3-4 years of my life was on a all natural hippie dairy farm. 200 dairy goats, so no chemicals, like very hippie. What's interesting is I got all my vaccines as a kid. My kids got all the vaccines when they were kids, but COVID, the mRNA vaccine, I would just say broke the system. I have 10 grandkids, not, I'll just say a very high majority have not received a single vaccine, but not the COVID, but like this next generation has simply given up on, or there's a good portion of them that have given up on the vaccine. So I'm not a denier. I got them all. My kids give them all, but they're opting out. They just don't want to participate. So this is the question. Rachel said she obviously is concerned for her kids' safety. I'm assuming they've gotten the vaccines, all the required vaccines. But if she's protected, or if this child is protected, why would that, like, well, I don't understand the concern from that perspective. If your family is protected, why are you concerned if my kids get sick?
It's a great question, Chris. Now, obviously, I'm not a medical expert or scientist, but I have seen reporting actually just a few hours ago, and they were talking about this on television, that if you have like a classroom where, say, half the kids are vaccinated and half the kids are not, even kids who are vaccinated can be exposed. So it's not just because you have the vaccine doesn't mean you're 100% protected. It's sort of a group protection. And that's sort of been the logic, I guess, in terms of requiring kids who go to public schools to get certain vaccines. And so there is a suggestion from medical experts that it puts certain kids at risk. Now, again, I'm not a medical expert here, but obviously I want my kid to be safe. So it's something that, I think about.
Yeah, to me, I guess what I'm looking at is I feel like the mRNA, I have a hard time calling it a vaccine, like this shot, this technology that was distributed as a vaccine, which so clearly did not work. It didn't live up to the promise, has caused a lot of questioning. And this is why, I mean, I appreciate what Kennedy's doing, is trying to bring transparency to the table, and I kind of wish him the best.
Okay. Grateful to you as always, Chris. Thank you. Appreciate it. Dr. John just logged on. Doctor, do you want to join this conversation? If you do, turn on your camera. I'm assuming you rushed on because you wanted to. Here is America's favorite doctor, our favorite doctor from Nashville, Tennessee, father of many, and vaccine with a complex view of vaccines. How about that? Doctor, educate us. Thoughts on vaccines, which is, I bet, why you logged on in a hurry, even though you're on the move.
Well, no, actually, you know what I'm at? I'm at my daughter's soccer practice right now. I just got here from work, so that's why I was on late.
Awesome.
But I just heard that last comment, and I don't want to take up too much time, but maybe I'll log on tomorrow morning. But I could talk for 10 minutes. I just want to put into this audience, just for information's sake. I think there's a lot of hysteria around what Florida is doing and around moving from potentially mandatory vaccination to recommended vaccination. 17 EU countries, that's what their policy is. Canada, the UK, Australia, all of Scandinavia, India, China, none of them have mandatory childhood vaccinations. Only 20 countries in the world mandate vaccines for school. And there are several countries within the Americas that mandate vaccines writ large. So we're in a pretty unique, pretty minority position here in this country that we mandate it for school only. But to say that moving towards recommended from mandatory is somehow antithetical to science is just not true. It's not in line with what goes on around the globe in developed countries. South Korea did that in 1999, for example. And I don't think people think of South Korea or Scandinavia as anti-science, backwaters. So I did want to just make that point. I think framing it in the way that was just done is the most important thing we can do for this conversation, that people on both sides that are parents and non-parents care deeply about their kids. And I think that has to be the framing of this conversation rather than the partisan spin that happens so frequently. I think people who are staunchly pro-vaccine care about their kids deeply. And I think there are parents who have seen in their own lives or in people's lives around them the adverse effects from vaccines potentially also care deeply about their kids. And I think the nuance required for this conversation is only possible in a place like Two-Way. And even here, it probably still doesn't get enough time for the nuance it requires, frankly. So that's my brief.
Okay, thank you,
my
Doctor.
brief take.
Yeah. Rachel, question or comment?
Yeah, John, really well said. We should all remember we're here for our kids and their future and our need and desire to protect them. And that should sort of unite us and let us have a friendly and understanding conversation. You said you're a doctor. I'm not familiar with you. I hadn't been on the show with you before. But can you speak to my concern about if you have a vaccine and a lot of the kids in the class do not, does it open you up to a risk? You would know better than me. I'm curious.
Totally. Yeah. It's a great question. And it's a common one. The idea of herd immunity is complex. And as was brought up earlier as well, the difference between, smallpox or a measles vaccination or polio vaccination and mRNA technology for COVID is just a vast difference. It's like trying to say all of cancer is the same. They're just totally different technologies. In theory, right, if you are protected against something like smallpox, you've been given a small bit of smallpox to then train your body's immune system to be able to recognize it. To eradicate the disease, you need herd immunity. To be individually protected, it's less clear, right? So individual protection from a disease that your body is trained to fight would be influenced by so many factors that affect your individual immune system that's why, yes, it's hard. It's easier to say to eradicate it, you need everybody to have their immune systems working in parallel. That makes perfect sense. For something like COVID, that was known even pretty early on and admitted. And I think this is to me what is the most important point here, because a lot of this for so many people came out of COVID. And paternalism is how our system has been approached within healthcare, within medicine, that the doctor knows what's best, right? That's more old people tend to think that nowadays than young people. But that only works when they trust you to have their best interests at heart. And I think decline in trust in physicians went from 70% to 40% between 2020 and 2024. Okay, so this was well before this election even happened, well before RFK was in this position. Trust in physicians was already at 40%. That's according to the Journal of the American Medical Association paper that came out. So the trust in institutions writ large is collapsing more and more every day. And that's a real problem. So I hear that concern totally, but there's a reason why it has. And I think we have to acknowledge that as well. And we have to acknowledge within my profession, our complicity and our role in the fact that our patients have lost our trust. And we have to do something very differently than we have been doing. And this is part of a much broader conversation that, to me, I am an independent that I think both parties have led to the state of our healthcare system right now. Premiums have gone up 111%. Deductibles, premiums have gone up 55%. Rural hospitals are closing. They have been closing for years and years and years because of consolidation and private equity buying it up. People don't trust that companies or institutions have their best interests at heart. And we absolutely have to fix that. I do believe that a lot of what RFK ran on and is doing is trying to do that, even though I know a lot of my own colleagues disagree with me. And that's going to be a problem going forward.
Doctor, I don't know how much, before you go, I don't know how much of the hearings you got to watch today, but just in general, as Secretary Kennedy's conduct over the last month or so undermined your confidence in him at all, or you think he's doing a great job, or how would you rate how he's doing?
The thing I'm most worried about, frankly, is, and I've brought this up on the morning meeting before, is the centralization of data, and that when he was like wearables on every wrist, and Jim O'Neill having connections to Peter Thiel, and Palantir having all of our health data and either using it for making money or for some sort of centralized collection system. That's terrifying to me. In terms of what he's trying to do, in terms of taking, again, if I take him at his word, the reason he got into this in the first place was because of listening to parents. And I want to believe that's true, because that has been true of my experience of listening to patients as well. And I think our healthcare system is broken. So I agree with him on that. I think he's the only person that is at least poking the right bears. And I don't think everything he's doing is perfect, but I don't think anyone could do this perfectly.
John, thank you. Great to see you. Good luck with the practice. David, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for Rachel, Mark, and Stephen.
So I'm based in California. I kind of have two questions, but I'll just stick on this topic. I guess the main concern I have a son that's scheduled for the vaccines, kind of going on every single pediatrician appointment. It seems like there's just really a lack of transparency with the data itself. You constantly hear there's data, the science has been proven, there's all these studies and whatever. But even doing my own research, it seems impossible to really find any of that data and really get to the bottom of who's being tested, how they're being tested, what does that kind of look like? I know there's studies. It just kind of seems like you have to be a scientist, you have to be a doctor that's really into it to really get to that data itself. And there's like no effort by pretty much anyone, including the RFK and the MAHA movement, to really get that data to people. And I guess like that would be like probably like the main concern on this whole thing, where it just gets me worried. And then you have the questions of, do I want to give my kid whichever vaccine, hepatitis B, MMR? I don't even know what I'm looking at. I don't know and what the data says. I hear conflicting information, and then you're just said one side says trust science, and another says, look, autism's on the rise and all this other stuff. So it seems like it's just whoever went out and really provided a lot of that information, whether it's in an AI format of really trying to consolidate that information. I guess that would really be just like the main concern, kind of in general.
David, you speak for tens of millions. I hear you, and I hear what you're saying from so many others. I'll just throw it open to the group. Rachel, Mark, Stephen, any of you want to comment or ask David a question, please do.
I guess, yes. So David, that's super interesting. I guess my point would be, so like right now, a recent Gallup poll showed that the medical system writ large has a 12% great approval rating from the American public. That's like barely above Congress. That shows you where they're at. So what, aside from transparency, what would you recommend if RFK were here right now? What would you tell him to do or ask him to do to bring greater transparency or better clarity, better certainty for you?
It really is kind of the transparency that's going to ultimately be what does it. If you say that there's studies being done, explain what those studies are, how often they're being done, when they're being done. It doesn't necessarily have to be a full breakdown of a study or the main points of the study, but it has to be kind of what's going on, what really, it's really just transparency at the end of the day. It's showing the data, showing that you're doing that data, showing how often that data is being done, who that data is being done on. Even if you kind of break that down and say, you're not going to understand all this data, but trust the doctor and the data says that this vaccine is safe and effective. The fact that I know that you're doing this every single year on more than 1,000 people, which you sometimes hear these studies and they're done on 1,000 people, and you're like, that I can't take any of that with a grain of salt. So showing all that data and how often it's being done and how many people it's being done on, that's really where it's going to ultimately push me to be like, all right, I can trust this a little bit more.
David, thank you. Really, really interesting. And again, happy to have you part of Two-Way, and really grateful to you for giving voice to that, because I hear that all the time, and parents are too busy to become experts on data, and we all try, but we're not expert. David, thank you. Very grateful to Stephen and Mark for coming back, and for Rachel for coming back, and for all of you being here. And we hope you all come back on a regular basis. Love having you on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Go back,
Badgers. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Thank you.
And enjoy.
Thank you. Oops, sorry, Stephen, I muted you. Go ahead.
I said enjoy your time in Green Bay.
Yeah,
Packers are looking pretty good this year.
I'll be reporting live from Green Bay.
Nice.
You should do a two-way live from
yeah.
Lambeau Field.
I may. We'll see what the Wi-Fi is like. Again, thanks to all three of you. Very grateful to you.
Thank you, Mark.
Coming up in just a minute here on the Two-Way platform, Michael Moynihan, the Moynihan Report. Going to read you the name of Michael's guest, because it's my professional obligation to tell you that Michael's guest is Gibby Haynes, as at least Mark Bednar knows, the lead singer of the Butthole Surfers. The Butthole Surfers. My son's in the other room, but he probably can't hear me. Anyway, join Michael in just a moment for that. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Sean Dan and I will be on. It's the morning meeting Friday, so we'll have winners and losers of the week and what to look for over the weekend. And again, available right now, my podcast, video podcast, the Megyn Kelly Network, next up, available on YouTube and as a podcast. My guest, the very same Rachel Bade you saw here. We talked about the president's interesting relationship with Republicans in Congress, and where Democratic senators may run for president in 2028, with all the focus, or a lot of the focus, on potential governors. It hasn't been since Bill Clinton that Democrats have nominated a governor for president, even though they talk about it all the friggin' time. So we'll talk about that. And my guest also, Eric Schmidt, senator from Missouri, who's got a new book out about using the courts to fight conservative battles. And my reported monologue on Paul McCartney. Was not dead in 1969. Donald Trump is not dead today, but both of them spawned a series of conspiracy theories about their demises. And I talk about what I think the significance of that parallel is. So please go listen or watch that if you haven't, and I will see you at 9 a.m. Thanks again to Rachel, Mark, and Stephen. Thanks to you all for being part of the Two-Way community. See you in the morning. Have a good night. Go watch Michael Moynihan.